Welcome, welcome. The Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, of course, hosting your speaker series today. I appreciate you joining us for your environmental toolbox real estate due diligence with Mike Chester of Pinchin Ltd. Welcome, Mike. Good to see you, my friend. If you own a commercial building, if you're in real estate and you're selling commercial buildings, if you're an agent, if you're looking to buy property, this is a great webinar to attend when we're talking about real estate due diligence. We're going to go into things like environmental site assessments, building condition assessments, even asbestos, mold removal. I think Mike is even going to touch on how to maintain a healthy building for your employees and clients during COVID-19. Mike, I'm going to turn it right over to you, turn my video and mic off so I am paying attention. And thank you so much for joining us, Mike. We appreciate you and the Pinchin team.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany. Really appreciate it. The invite from the Peterborough Chamber of Commerce, and thanks to everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to be here as well. My colleague Rachel Northey out of the Peterborough Pinchin office is also here. Rachel is a project manager as well in our indoor air quality, mold assessments, occupational health and safety, hazardous material, and she's an engineer as well. So thanks, Rachel, for being here as well. I'm just going to share the screen here. Right to my presentation. I have two big exciting announcements to say right off the bat. One is this is not going to be a 60-minute presentation. And two, you don't really have to remember anything within it. It's a lot of information I'm going to go through, but the most important thing takeaway really is we're in Peterborough, we're supporting local, we're here for you. There's not a bad question to ask, and we're a phone call and email away. And so that's really the most important takeaway out of this 45 minutes or so presentation. And certainly if no questions come to mind during it, don't ever feel, just shoot me an email after it's marinated a bit. Maybe you have a situation comes up and you just have a question. Always here to take it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am. I'm a senior client manager out of the Pinchin Oshawa, Durham region and Peterborough office. That's our Peterborough address right there. I'm an environmental scientist as well. I look after sort of our core accounts and look at other sectors that we can be of benefit and support those industries as well. So glad to be here. The agenda really for Pinchin today is going to be about bringing you on a bit of a journey. We're seeing a lot of development happening right now, obviously, and so real estate is top of mind, and really environmental due diligence should be right there hand in hand. It's really critical, and I think this step is more important than ever to talk about. So I'm going to take you on a journey of environmental site assessments, the building condition assessments, to maybe touching a bit on hazardous building materials like asbestos, and then mold, and then I touch a bit upon, which is top of mind in a lot of industry, and that is how we're reoccupying, how can we do it safely and soundly during a different time of COVID-19. Pinchin, who are we? Well, we're really a national engineering environmental service provider, coast to coast from BC to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia to Newfoundland. So we offer a number of different service lines, but truly we're a one-stop shop. We can really help clients from the building to green fields to assisting them on site planning approval and getting developments started and finished, and geotechnical and hydro-G and all those sort of components. But those are how we kind of designate our sectors, and you'll see that to the left side in hazardous building materials and indoor environmental quality, environmental due diligence remediation. 8 or 9 points down is the one I'll be kind of speaking about today mostly. Environmental site assessments, and how do we start? Where does that begin? And this is sort of a little ladder of how it all kind of funnels. And it starts with a phase 1 environmental site assessment. What that really is a desktop review with a site visit. We're looking at all the historical information on a commercial industrial site. We kind of see, is there any underground storage tanks? Has there been any spills? Has there been any historical PCB on the site? And we take all that information, including site visits and some interviews and some regulatory freedom of information requests, and we gather an opinion, a recommendation. Is there potential contaminated activity on the site? And if we say yes, there would be, that goes to the next tier of the ladder, which is a phase 2 environmental site assessment. And that actually requires some borehole drilling for us to put some monitoring wells and actually look at the water and the soil conditions to see whether they meet the guidelines. If they're over the guidelines, then we're going to be asking for a phase 3, which is kind of a remedial approach. And then the upper phases are more of a closure steps. When you have a site that's like a typical commercial building, that's always going to be a commercial building. It's really a phase one ESA that you would get done for, lenders require that or what have you, because the land use isn't changing. As soon as you get into, say, a commercial industrial building, now they want to do mixed use, they want to have condominiums, they want to change the use to more sensitive use. We call that a record of site condition. That's a different type of phase one, but it's spelled out one versus a numerical one. And it's a lot more stringent. The guidelines are a lot more, a lot more stringent. The concentrations are much less that would meet the standards. So we use different approaches for a record of site condition, but Pinchin offers all these suites of services as well. Now, the process starts really with yourself. You bought a commercial building, your lender is saying, we need a phase one environmental site assessment, or we need a building condition assessment to appease sort of our conditions. And you would either reach out to Pinchin ourselves, and if you're a real estate agent or you're a third party, then you would just refer them to Pinchin and they would call us directly, or you could give me a call too, give me a bit of background, and we'd be happy to contact them as well. So we're going to be focusing on some major risk factors as well during this process. We're going to be looking at touch on asbestos and mold and all those historical sort of land use, across the road, up the street, all within a radius of your site as well. The phase one components really are kind of the 4 steps. And so we go with an historical review, looking at aerial pictures, we do city directories, look at tenancy of the property. How has it changed over time? Was there, a dry cleaner on the site or close to the site within the last number of years? We do what we call an ARIS database report, which is pretty much synonymous in the industry for all consultants use. ARIS provides a lot of regulatory information that are reported information, like PCB, underground storage tanks, waste generations, landfills, anything like that. And then we also do a freedom of information search with the Ministry of Environment as well. We do a site visit. We want to look at the site. We want to do like a walkabout in the building, outside of the building. We look for staining. We're looking for fill pipes for underground storage tanks, any type of vegetation changes. We're looking at land use changes, and we're also looking across the road within a radius as well of adjacent properties. Is there a gas station that's next door or up the street? Is there a landfill that's close by? We want to know that information for a phase one. These are sort of the major risk factors of a phase one. I think it's important to highlight them. And one is the underground storage tanks. And those are predominantly at the service stations and trucking firms and apartment buildings where they've got fuel oil storage tanks and solvent places, or anywhere there's dealing with oil waste, mechanical shops. Those are a red flag. Those are a major risk factor for a phase one. The other major risk factor is the dry cleaning businesses, because they use this perc solvent. And it sinks, extensively, so difficult to clean up, and it actually takes a lot of time, and it can be also done through risk assessment. It's often very difficult to clean it up. So often over time, it has to be managed. This is an important, I think, figure to the bottom left. And I worked for an insurance company for over 10 years, and retail fuel outlets and dry cleaners are the cause of about 80% of all environmental insurance claims. So when I say these are, major risk factors, they're pretty substantial red flags, need to be considered in a phase one and a phase two. These are other major risk factors with industrial land use, and manufacturing is definitely a risk factor. Chemical use and storage facilities, waste management facilities, landfills, those kind of things. Former gold gasification plants and railway stations with creosote on the rail lines has always been a flag as well. Now, the phase one, you'd ask, what's sort of the cost on it generally? And we always say the cost range, and it is certainly site specific, and we tailor it to everybody's needs. So this is just a really generalized range, but $2,800 to $3,500 is a very common range. And it depends again on where the site's located and the age of the building. If it's in an urban or rural setting, if it's just a greenfield property that you want a phase one, it would change that cost quite substantially as well. But we usually get a phase one done within 2 or 3 weeks of authorization. So we get the completed report to you within 2 or 3 weeks. We can do rush services, can be accommodated as well. And the conclusion of a phase one, as I talked earlier, is either that we don't feel there's any potential contaminated activities, or there is some potential contaminated activities. And we would recommend a phase two, which is those boreholes and water sampling and soil sampling. And we'd also discuss about asbestos as well, in those sort of realms as well, because we're going to be looking at asbestos on a phase one if there's a building on the site. Now here's the phase two primer. So here we are with the phase one. We've now, recommended a phase two. We see some potential environmental concerns. So we're going to be looking at the soil and groundwater quality just to see if it meets the guidelines. So we're going to be putting boreholes in for the monitoring wells, and we're going to be having field techs go to the sites, as you can see to the pictures of the right side, and be actual take samples and regularly to get an idea where do they fit the criteria within the guidelines of the ministry. And this type of contaminants that we're going to be analyzing are, volatile organic compounds, metals, hydrocarbons, all those sort of parameters. Good to note here, though, that Pinchin, being a large engineering firm, we have our own laboratory. So we're able to get results very quickly. And we have our own laboratory, not only for phase two work, but for asbestos and those kind of things as well. So here's some pictures of some actual borehole drilling that for phase twos that we have for our field staff. And you can see it changes. There's some that are outside and there's some that are actually interior. So we're able to change, our scope of our project work depending on the restrictions at the site. We know a lot of buildings within this, downtown core of even Peterborough can be really tight to get into. And so we have to find other creative ways to take samples, and those can be interior in the basement. So phase two deliverables, the drilling costs are really dependent on how many drilling holes we have to do. We usually say 3 drilling holes for a phase two. And that can change with a record of site condition. And the cost can be variable on the laboratory costs and what we're analyzing, how many parameters we're analyzing, and how fast you need the turnaround. But because we have our own lab, we're able to get results really quite quickly. And this is sort of a rough range of the cost of the phase two. So we say $4,700 to $5,700 per borehole. And as I mentioned earlier, for a phase two environmental site assessment, usually 3 boreholes are a minimum. So you're looking at about $15,000 to $20,000. If that phase one recommends a phase two, and we complete the phase two, and we get phase twos completed with usually about 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how the locates are going. Again, we offer rush service as well, so that's nice to have in your back pocket. If you're, have a deal that's it's got a certain restricted timeline, we can typically kind of meet that depending on what those timelines are. This is an important statement, I think, with phase ones or environmental site assessments, and it really goes in anything, building condition assessments, and I know Rachel can speak to this on her side as well. It's comparing apples to oranges in terms of what's being done. Every consultant has a different way potentially of doing certain work. Some of it's the same, but some of it can be kind of different, especially with phase ones. So it can be a bit of a trickier slope to kind of compare the two. All I can really say to you is that Pinchin, because we've been doing it, well, this year is our 40th anniversary. And because we're coast to coast, over 40 offices, close to 1,000 employees, we have a lot of national portfolios that we do. We also do a lot of peer reviews, meaning we review other consultants' work. We have a certain process in place that a lot of senior staff will review our work before it's given back to the client. So we want to make sure you get the best possible project completed that we can for you. And so I think it's just important to state that we have a lot of QA/QC mechanisms already in place with our system. And because we do a lot of national portfolios, it works really, really well. Now, I want to shift now from the environmental site assessment. So those phase one, those phase two, those monitoring wells, here we are now at the building. We have a commercial industrial building, and maybe the lender is saying we need to have a building condition assessment because the building is over 20 years old. It's an older building. And a building condition assessment, a property condition assessment, is really a visual inspection, again, of all those major components, the HVAC system, the mechanical, the roof covering. And what it's going to provide you is a story of the building and with pictures. And it's going to provide a story of the building with expenditures and a nice spreadsheet. And it gives you an idea what you're expected, what you will be expecting in terms of cost to prepare certain things in the building over time. So it gives you a great ability when you're purchasing a building, or if you have a current building that you're looking at purchasing, to understand what those expenditures might be over a certain time period of 5 years. So here's what it kind of looks like, just a summary of the actual Excel spreadsheet, but it does tell a story in the actual report with pictures, and I'll show you how it kind of does that in a second here. But some of the potential deal breakers of a building condition assessment really are, and these are the red flags I said with maybe phase ones, it was dry cleaners and underground storage tanks. Well, here are some deal breakers on the building condition side. So roof replacements is a biggie, right? It can be very costly on a commercial industrial building. Structural issues, you can imagine what that would be with, post-tensioning issues, HVAC replacements, actual water infiltrating through insulated cladding systems. Underground parking garages are a fairly large red flag as well, just because they can corrode over time the structure and the integrity of the actual covering, and so that has to be evaluated extensively. Here are some roof issues that we've identified doing building condition assessments, and you can just kind of see, it doesn't take much to see that needs to have new covering. Bottom right, there's actually a breakdown of the roof and it's actually infiltrating in there. And I think this is an important thing to talk about too, is that we've been in COVID for over 18 months and a lot of buildings have been underutilized or not being utilized at all. And so these type of issues, when they're not maintained, they can present a big problem. And I'll kind of bring you along as I can, but we're talking about these major risk factors here for buildings, but also when water goes into these buildings and in walls and what have you, it only takes them 48 hours for mold growth to occur, right? And so now you have another set of issues. And so it's really important now more than ever, I think, that building owners are a little more conscious of building condition assessments because of the lag time that we haven't been in our buildings as much. Here's some pictures of the actual cladding of buildings where the caulking has sort of come away. And you can see when they're pulled off to the right side, the cladding, that water has noticeably infiltrated into the building and has degraded the structure and is causing mold already. You can see the graying of it. Now the water infiltration, again, it doesn't take long for it to take hold and obviously breach the structure. And you can see here these pictures that we've all seen this probably in our own, places over time when there's a water leak or what have you. But with bigger buildings, it can be a huge cost and the caulking breakdown as well. And there's just an exposed wall to the right side, and you can see the studding is rusting, and a lot of it is actually rotting in the actual bottom pan as well. So building condition assessments, a lot of goods is done in this, and I think it's a great point to talk about that the range is pretty low, in my opinion, for the value of real estate right now. A building condition assessment can vary, and this is very generalized, but $300 to $4,500 is what it costs you for most commercial buildings. And it only takes 2 weeks to do after the site visit an actual report to you. And again, expenditures go up 5 years to 10 years, and it gives you a good understanding of what you're expected in terms of expenditures over time. So if you're looking at even putting up your commercial building for sale, I think it's a nice tool to use as a transparency piece to just lay it out on the line. And I think you may even get more bang for your buck for your property doing that way as well. But I think most importantly, on a due diligence standpoint, if you're looking at buying a building, it's definitely, I think, a well thought out tool to maybe think about. The additional considerations now, I'm kind of shifting now from building condition assessments to the asbestos surveys. And so, under OREG 27805, building owners must survey for friable and non-friable asbestos materials. And you go, what's friable or non-friable? And friable really means it can be crumbled, easily pulverized or reduced to powder by hand pressure. And why that's a concern is just because obviously for respiratory issues, for workers coming into the building to do actual work. So that's an important parameter that a survey identifies. And when you've got asbestos in the building, you need to do these surveys yearly on the commercial lens. So copies should be provided to the tenants and occupants and the contractors. So everybody's working in a safe environment or living in a safe environment. Now here are some asbestos materials. I think it's important to kind of highlight them because you kind of lose sight of, wow, I never thought asbestos was there. So asbestos paper around ductwork, obviously vinyl floor tiling and sheet flooring is a big one. And the acoustic ceiling tiles is another biggie, but it's also around insulation on pipes and things that you don't expect as well. So it's, if you don't test, you don't know, right? And I think it's just a really critical, awareness piece to know that a lot of products have it that you may be unaware of. And believe it or not, the Wizard of Oz had asbestos snow come down on those fine actors, but they didn't know at that time that it was as harmful as it is. And that's kind of where we're at with a lot of things environmentally, right? As we move along, we find out that they're maybe a little more harmful in our usages. Now, once you've established that you've got asbestos in your building and it's a commercial building, an industrial building, and you need to do a renovation on it, you're required to get a designated substances survey done. And we do offer them at Pinchin as well. And it is really just to ensure the safety of the workers that are doing the renovation and the alteration of the building so that abatement can occur and they can be done in a safe manner. Here's some mold and indoor air quality investigations that we've done as well. There you can just see that there's actual site pictures of it and taking moisture readings. And you see to the bottom right, there's a cannabis area as well. And Pinchin has a cannabis team as well for assisting our cannabis industry. We work a lot in environmental compliance and in building science because with cannabis, they require a lot of energy to grow cannabis or the plants. And with that, we do a lot of work in regards to LEED and building science, energy efficiency. So factors for mold growth, again, within 48 hours, you've got mold growth. All they need to have is an cellulose material like wood, ceiling tiles, cardboard, drywall, the soil and the carpets, anything like that, they will grow within 48 hours and it doesn't take much. And we've seen it in those other pictures where buildings have been left underutilized or vacant and water infiltrates through, crack in the caulking or the cladding is coming apart and it gets in there and it just sits there like standing water and it wicks up all the drywall and it just keeps moving, right? So prolonged humidity or those conditions, any wet area, leaks, floods, and we offer all those services in terms of mold assessments as well, mold investigations and assisting with abatement with contractors as well. I'm shifting now from the environmental site assessment side, the building conditions and the asbestos and the mold. Now we're kind of talking more about where we are today in terms of reoccupying our buildings in a safe manner and how to properly sort of disinfect your business. Initially when COVID hit, I think everybody was just cleaning the heck out of things, right? Multiple applications, a lot of disinfectant was occurring. And I think what's happening now is that there's much more, you'll see during the presentation, much more of a strategic way of doing it now. I mean, there's studies coming out now that overuse of disinfectant can have some acute health impacts such as asthma and wheezing and things like that. So we're being a little more smarter on it in regards to shifting from just hitting everything with disinfectant to maybe going on more on certain points in those areas that are going to be touch points. So I'll show you how we're looking at it at this point with Pinchin. And first, I think it's important to talk about the transmission of COVID-19. We all kind of know, but it's a bit of a moving target still. Inhalation of respiratory droplets is the big one. And they can travel, they say, up to 2 meters in distance and in contact with the virus contaminated surface. This is still unknown a lot, right? How long it lives on certain surfaces. And I'll kind of show you what they're saying at this point. And airborne transmission is another biggie. And we're doing a lot of work for commercial industrial buildings in regards to HVAC systems and how we keep airflow moving. So what's the best treatment for COVID? The prevention way. So really the 4 wings, the biggies is the proper hygiene, physical distancing, the self-isolation, and the barriers. And I think we need to sort of stress this still. And that the hygiene part is obviously washing your hands for those 20 seconds or longer. And really important is to avoid touching your nose and your mouth and your eyes and those kind of things, and avoiding contact with those people that presumably are getting sort of symptoms, and covering your obviously your mouth or your nose when you sneeze, and cleaning and disinfecting properly those objects. And I'm going to talk about how we kind of clean and disinfect properly and how it kind of works with an industrial commercial application. And then most importantly, the self-isolation. If you're feeling sick, got some of those symptoms, it's just to stay home and seek medical care, get a COVID-19 test. So the 5th, physical distancing. We call that, again, it was social distancing, right? And I can't see because my picture's all here, but you can see how without social distancing, with one case, after 6 weeks, it's 1,093, they're saying. And with social distancing, it's 33% fewer contacts. So a dramatic difference. So social distancing really is key. And avoiding those crowded places and non-essential gatherings, avoiding common greetings and handshakes and hugs. I know we like to do that, but we still need to be kind of conscious of that, and limit contact with those high risk populations, like, those older individuals, maybe people with preconditions, and maintaining the social distancing of 2 meters as well is really critical. Self-isolation now, we need to stay home and avoid contact with others if we're still feeling symptoms. And self-isolation periods can really range from 10 to 14 to 20 days, and sometimes more length of time. But you really must self-isolate when you're waiting for a COVID-19 test result as well. And so I think it's just important to state that. Barriers now we're using within businesses is obviously we're using plexiglass now more than ever between workstations and front receptions, and obviously the face mask as well, which is critical. Now, cleaning products and procedures. I recently did a presentation, kind of a joint one with Charlotte Products out of Peterborough. And so we kind of touched a bit on a few of these things as well, but I'm going to kind of go into it. I think it's an important thing as we move along in this process of reoccupying still. So Health Canada has published a list of disinfectants that are effective against COVID-19, and they update it regularly. But Charlotte Products is there out of Peterborough. They're active with COVID-19 disinfectant and cleaning products. But I did put a link in the bottom there that you can go on that gives you a complete list of all the products that they are approving for COVID-19. And how to find out which disinfectant meets the Health Canada requirements. You want to locate that drug identification number. And I put a big arrow there. And you want to look for this number on your disinfectants for use against, the SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 list. And that lets you know that it's effective. The list is small though, yeah, and it's true. It is a small list, and that's why I think it's important to highlight certain organizations that are on the list, because Charlotte Products is, and it's out of Peterborough, so it's nice to support local. And if you can't find a product you're looking for, or you have a different concern, reach out to us, let us know, and we'll be happy to dig into it for you and find out hopefully that answer for you. Rachel is a qualified person as well, so she's project manager out of the Pinchin Peterborough office, and certainly can guide you in the right direction as well if we can't be of assistance. And how long does COVID-19 live on surfaces? Remember I was saying we really don't know, and the research is still ongoing and varying, and we're learning new things about how COVID-19, these variants are staying on products and contaminating the products for length. But the New England Journal of Medicine put copper at 4 hours, cardboard at 24 hours, plastic 72 hours, stainless steel 72 hours, and air 3 hours. So the virus can hang on droplets in the air for up to 3 hours before it falls to the ground. And you can see some other ones to the right side there, where stainless steel 2 to 3 days and plastic 3 days, right? So it's a whole list of them on that link on there, but we don't know. It's unknown, but it's certainly, I think we go on that 3 days. I think we're fairly safe. I mentioned before how we kind of shifted from like disinfecting everything, just going to town, maybe overuse of disinfectant, right? And so now we're focusing with much more strategic approaches, and we're looking at touch points. And they're common locations, obviously at work or a place of business or where you live, and you're normally touching those spots, and keyboards, telephones, light fixtures, switches, refrigerators, things like that. And so I'm going to kind of show you some visuals here. And here's an example of typical touch points that we've numbered here, but can you find any missing touch points, right? And I think if you look closer, you go, geez, maybe they would touch, the top of that garbage pail. It doesn't seem like it's a foot mechanism. It's more like you have to touch it with your hand. Maybe the top of that paper towel dispenser, you put your hand on the top and you would grab the bottom one to grab the actual paper towel. So you can see how even in a small little bathroom, how many touch points we're at here, right? Like we just identified 2, and you probably can throw it a couple more. We may be at a dozen. So it's having these focused areas to really clean our efforts on and using disinfectant. And I put some other examples of more office environments, and you can see the list is it's pretty large. But once you get a good sense of where you need to target, it goes quite quickly, and then you're being very efficient on your cleaning mechanisms, and you're actually doing it probably a better service as well, as we talked about with those acute health conditions with asthma and wheezing. But conference rooms, offices, restrooms, anything like maybe even fax machines, if you're using them, or photocopy machines, right? We forget about those sort of things. They're used so extensively, photocopiers, scanners, and focusing in on those and using the right disinfectant that's not going to be harmful to your electronics as well. So cleaning versus disinfecting. Cleaning really is just removing dirt, impurities, and germs from surfaces, but cleaning alone does not kill the germs. And this is kind of the key for the viruses, but by removing the germs, it decreases their number. So it's a good first step. You need to start with the cleaning procedure and then move to the disinfectant. And the disinfectant really is the key of what's going to kill the viruses and the germs. And it doesn't clean it. That's why you have to still clean first, but because it reduces the number before you get to the disinfectant. This is just kind of a very generalized, but step one, you want to clean before disinfectant. Spray your product, soap and water, directly onto the surface to be clean. And you want to wipe with a clean towel to pre-clean surface of all gross debris. When you do that, you want to make sure you're not reusing it. You want to put it immediately in a garbage pail. Step two, disinfect after cleaning. So you want to now spray the product directly onto the surface and leave it, right? There's a certain type of contact time, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then after the contact time has been achieved, you're going to wipe again clean with a clean rag. You don't want to use the same one, right, that you've been using for cleaning. So you really want to make sure you're vigilant on using it and then throwing it in the garbage. And believe it or not, this type of garbage doesn't have to go to hazardous waste. It can go in your regular garbage. So the contact time, what is contact time? That is the time that the disinfectant needs to stay wet on a surface in order to ensure the most effectiveness. So it varies, but it can go from 15 seconds to 10 minutes, the maximum time which is allowed by the EPA. But the surface must be visibly wet for the entire contact time. If the disinfectant does dry on the surface before the contact time is reached, you need to reapply as needed. So contact time, where is it found? And it's on your disinfectant products, and it's on those Health Canada disinfectant products, most importantly, because they have to, by law, have them on there. And here's examples of contact time. So common household cleaners is typically 3 minutes, but a hospital grade disinfectant is 10 minutes. So every minute counts. So general disinfectant, 3 minutes, as we talked about, but you can see further down, right down there to the 2 minute range, that we're looking at coronavirus, right? So, it all varies on that contact time. It's so critical to read the instructions on it, and it'll lay it out. And again, it's required by Health Canada. Wow, I might not have even met 45 minutes here, but I wanted to be sensitive to everyone's time. But most importantly, again, we're just here for you. There's a lot of information, and we have experts that at Pinchin, whether it be at Peterborough or the Durham Region Office, we can assist you. And yeah, if you have any questions, I would love to hear from them.
Excellent. If you have any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself. Matt, did you have a question there, my friend?
It's not so much a question, it's more that Pinchin actually helped us out with asbestos remediation in our house. We had the GE asbestos that we sort of caught wind of from the CBC article. And I just say thank you, because it happened right before COVID. Your guys were in there doing it all just as COVID hit. And I'd never really had the chance to sort of thank you guys for the awesome work you did. It was absolutely incredible what you did. You sort of took it all out, negative pressure chambers, and the guys in the full suit. It was unbelievable how, how extensive the work was, and they were measuring and air testing every, I don't know, there was a team there forever, it would seem. But yeah, you guys, and we've got this, 60-page report from you guys with it all in there. And it's just great peace of mind to have that, whenever we do come to sell our house, it's all gone. It's all been taken care of by you guys. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Matt. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's really the key, is it gives you the peace of mind, and everything that I've spoken about here, really just at the end of the day, that's really our objective, is just to find innovative, creative solutions to give peace of mind to either the clients or other neighboring, businesses that are impacted by it. We're all professional in environmental specialists, and we're always trying to better the world that we live in. So I'm very great to hear that. And I think that's the value of even building condition assessments too, is it gives a tremendous amount of peace of mind, knowing that you're buying a substantial investment. Commercial building, if you will, doesn't have to be, a large commercial building, but it's just amazing how these upgrades and some structural issues can cause a ripple. So it's better to have that knowledge up front than down the line potentially. And for only $3,000, it's probably money well spent, is how I see it.
Excellent. I agree. And asbestos can be very scary, especially if you're starting renovations and maybe we're doing it at home by ourselves, so it's a quick phone call to Pinchin to get the experts in and the peace of mind, because, it's always a scary thing when you go into the attic and you start moving around things that maybe you shouldn't have no business moving.
And your guys, to be fair, they as soon as they walked in and lifted the newer installation, because it was sort of buried under the new stuff, they looked at it and said, oh yeah, that's the GE stuff. And they took samples of it to confirm, but they knew just by looking at it straight away. So, and everything had to come out. So all new installation in there, like it was sort of a complete gut job. And, it looked wonderful before the new installation went in, because we've got this sort of 130-year-old attic space that was brand new and clean, not a single bug or dust or anything in there. So it was lovely, but then you filled it out with new installation. So
the GE had a particular look that was different than some. I know we've spoken about it, and so they could easily identify it actually. And
it was Chris Fennell was the sort of guy that was leading the whole thing. He was incredible. The whole team was, but it was Chris that sort of helped us out and held a hand through it all. So it was wonderful. So
great to hear. Chris, he's a senior project manager out of the Peterborough, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. He has an architectural background as well. So he's amazing colleague.
Yeah, very, very pleased with your service. So yeah, really, that's sort of what the main point. I saw Pinchin on the chambers sort of stuff, and I thought, I need to just reconnect with these guys. I haven't really had a chance to say thank you, so yeah.
And now we got it on video.
Yeah, very kind of you.
So yes, if you're gonna do some renos, get them to check it, because if it's GE stuff, they can get rid of it for you as well. So there you go.
Yeah, and then there's no fear, right? There's no worry, because it's asbestos and that's not in my wheelhouse, so I would have no idea what I would be moving around, right? So it's exactly. Just to call somebody to make sure that environmentally your family's safe and the environment as well, because you don't want to be just dumping that in a dumpster somewhere, right? Like. So excellent. It's really neat that you have your own lab too. I bet that turns things around a lot faster for your clients. Get some answers, a bit deeper, I think, knowledge on the results kind of coming back from the work that you're doing. So excellent. Great work to the Pinchin team. Mike, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing today your brain. If you have any questions after this webinar, or maybe you're watching the recording, if you have any questions for Mike or Rachel or the Pinchin team, just reach out to them. Mike, if we want to reach out to you directly, how do we do that?
Yeah, you can just email me at mchester@pinchin.com, or my direct number I can give too. It's 289-404-7352. And yeah, email, text, call, we're here for you. And there's a whole crew behind us too that are supporting you. So happy to hear from you anytime. Or if you just want to say hello, we're always good at that too. Or have a coffee.
Absolutely. Now, I do have a question for you, Mike, that came in from Jennifer. Jennifer is from Royalty Kids TV, and she said, thank you for the presentation. How often would you recommend a building inspection to keep it in good condition?
Yeah, I think the building condition assessment side, there's a certain timeline where, believe it or not, over 18 months, they're considered to get a new one. Yeah. So it's like a phase 1 environmental site assessment. Things can change. So 18 months is pretty much industry standard.
Awesome. And it kind of gives you an advantage to stay up on any big things coming down the pipeline, right? So if there's no big surprises, you might kind of be aware of something in that 18-month time frame that's significantly less stressful to take on down the road.
Also keep in note too, if it was like when we did it before the phase 1 or the building condition assessment, we do a lot of updates as well. So, we can work with price is what we're trying to say.
Excellent. Yeah. And I'll always give a call, talk, have a conversation about, yeah, don't ever just assume how much it's going to
Yeah.
cost. Have the conversation, talk about your budget, because I'm sure
That's right.
there's ways to kind of make things work.
Yeah, we just try to work on, maybe there's a step process that we can help if the cost is the inhibitor, or, you know, what have you. So we're there to tailor a solution for you, right?
Excellent. You
Yeah.
care about the environment. The Pinchin team cares about this community, each other, because I see you guys always take care of each other in your own internal team as well. So, I mean, excellent employer. You're also up for a Business Excellence Award. You're a finalist. So
Yeah.
we'll find out the results of that in October. Shout out to Pinchin team. So again, Mike, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rachel, for joining us today. We appreciate the Pinchin team, the incredible work that you do for the environment, for businesses, to make sure we stay ahead of the game. And it's online. If you know somebody that can take advantage of the information, have them reach out to Pinchin, watch the video, take care of each other. Have a great day, everyone.